So in the past, I've done a couple corned beef videos out on the grill or the smoker, but I've had questions on how I do corned beef when it's not outside at the grill. Honestly, this is the way I do corned beef, potatoes, and cabbage. Super simple and super tasty. So this really has two parts to it. We have the corned beef, the potatoes, and the vegetables, not counting the cabbage. The cabbage I do at the end separately out of the slow cooker because I really prefer the cabbage cooked a different way and it gives it a lot of flavor. But first we got to get our corned beef, our potatoes, and our vegetables going. So I've got my slow cooker here, and in the bottom I'm just going to put 4 whole peeled carrots and 1 medium onion that's been just sort of roughly chopped up. Next comes our corned beef, and this is about a 3-pound point cut corned beef. I've left all the seasonings on it because that's what's going to help season everything else in here. And I'm going to put it fat side down. Now I'm going to start adding water before I add the potatoes. Now this is a little different. A lot of recipes call for the potatoes to go on the bottom, underneath the corned beef and with the vegetables. I prefer to do them on top because I like doing this on the low setting, so it can take, 6, 7, 8 hours. That gives those potatoes time to cook slowly without becoming mushy. So I want to add my water here first, and I'm just going to add enough till we get up sort of to the bottom of the corned beef. I'm not trying to submerge everything here. Right around there. Now I'm going to get my potatoes in here, and I'm just going to place them all around. On top of the corned beef, everywhere. You can put as many as you can fit in there. You could use red potatoes. For this, I wouldn't use large russet potatoes because those do take longer to cook unless you're going to quarter them, get them down into smaller pieces. And you'll notice I leave the skin on. I like Yukon Golds and red potatoes with the skin on. If you want the skin off, you can take it off. Now I'm just going to get my lid on. We're going to set it on the low temperature setting. I'll set a time at probably 7 hours so we can check it, we'll probably check it around 6. And then when we get close to the end, that's when we're going to do our cabbage. So we've been going 6 hours here with our corned beef and our potatoes and vegetables on low in the slow cooker. Time to check them, see where we are. I know it's probably going to take a little bit longer. Again, this can take 6, 7, 8 hours, even longer sometimes, depending on the size of that corned beef. And every slow cooker is a little bit different. You can do this on high. I prefer to do it on low. So let's see how it's looking. Now, if you remember, I added water to the bottom of the corned beef, not to cover it. That's a little different than some other recipes. A lot of moisture will come out of that corned beef, but also a lot of moisture from the vegetables. So if you look at it there, the liquid level is right about at the top of the corned beef. Let's just see how our potatoes are doing here, tenderness-wise. I'm just using my probe. Yeah, they still have a little bit to go too. Just a little bit. Now let's see how our corned beef's doing. Still some resistance. Let's see if I can get a temperature here. We're showing about 179 degrees internal. To me, that means it's got at least another 10 or 15 degrees to go. So we could turn it up to high now, but I'm just gonna let it stay on low. It's probably gonna take another hour, hour and a half. And when we get close to that end time, then we're gonna move on to making our cabbage. All right, our corned beef and potatoes and vegetables are just about done. They're just sort of keeping warm, finishing up, tenderizing a little bit. Time to move on to the cabbage. Now I have my induction burner out here. You could do this on the stove. This is just so I can film it easier. And I have my cast iron Dutch oven, the enameled one here. You can do it in any sort of pan you want. Higher sides are a little bit better. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get 4 tablespoons of butter in here. Yes, butter in the cabbage. This is a cabbage for people who say they don't like cabbage. That's what we've found when we make this. It's really, really good. And I'm just gonna set my burner on medium to start. Just want to let that butter start to melt before we add our first ingredient. The butter doesn't have to melt fully before our next step, which is to add 1 medium shallot that's been chopped. And just want to stir those shallots around in there. And this is salted butter. If you prefer, you can use unsalted, but I want a little bit of that flavor in here. Just starting to see sort of some steam release off of here, and that's a signal to start adding the cabbage because We want to use that steam from the butter, from the shallots, and from the cabbage that are going in here to help cook it. So what we're going to add now is half a head of just regular green cabbage that's been chopped up pretty good. Let's just give that a stir. Next, I'm going to add an entire head of purple kale. Yes, kale. It's terrific with this, and if you have to, go ahead and smash it down to get it to fit. Now we're going to put our lid on and we're going to let this sort of simmer and steam. We're going to lower the temperature to power level 3, which is sort of a low, medium, low. Make sure all those pieces are in there. And we're going to check this in 5 minutes. All right, we've been going for about 5 minutes. Let's give this a check and we're going to give it a stir also. I'm also going to add about 3/4 of a cup of the liquid from our corned beef that's in the slow cooker. And we're going to get our lid back on and we'll check it in another 5 minutes. All right, we've been going another 5 minutes. I want to stir this some more and I also want to season it, and we're going to leave our lid off for a few minutes this time. Give this some cracked black pepper. I like a lot of pepper. Add a little bit of salt, not too much. And we're going to stir. All right, I'm going to leave this uncovered and we're going to check it again in another 5 minutes. All right, most of that liquid we added has evaporated, and what we want to do now, because the cabbage is very tender, is we want to let it crisp up a little bit, get a little color on it on the bottom of this pan. So at this point, I'm just going to keep cooking it until I get a little bit of that caramelization on pieces, can stir it around, get it on more. Just get the color you want on it at this stage in the pan you're using. So I'm just going to keep stirring this. So I'm just going to watch this, let it get the color I want, and I'll bring you back when it's time to plate this, our corned beef, our potatoes, and our vegetables. All right, I went ahead and sliced up some of the corned beef to get that ready, and now it is time to plate everything. I'm going to start with some of our potatoes here. Now we have some of our carrots. They are super tender. You could just easily break these with, look, I can just take that and snap it. Love good carrots. A few onions over here. Before we get our corned beef on here, I just want to hit this with a little bit of pepper. And now some of our nice corned beef. Gotta make room here for our cabbage. I love the addition of that purple kale in there. It adds a nice little contrast to just the green cabbage. There we go. Our slow-cooked corned beef, potatoes, and vegetables with our butter sauteed cabbage. It's looking great. It is time to taste. So whenever I do one of these multi-element videos, the question becomes, what do you taste first? Well, I'm going to taste the carrots first because I really like cooked carrots. Let's see. Super tender, not mushy. That's really one of the keys there by using the lower heat. You're not really boiling those carrots to get them done. And being on the bottom of the slow cooker, they absorb all that flavor that comes off that corned beef. Potato time. Let's see. I love Yukon Gold potatoes in something like this, especially if you do cook them a little slower, because they do get tender again without getting mushy, and they're just so creamy. I think they're a perfect accompaniment when you're doing corned beef, cabbage, and potatoes. I'm going to skip over the onions because, well, they're onions. They taste good. They add a lot of flavor to the juice there. But let's taste that cabbage. Just giving it that time in the pan to get a little bit of color, get a little bit of caramelization, just as much as you want, really brings an extra layer of flavor there. And as I said, people who don't like cabbage, we have found will like cabbage. In all honesty, of all these things, the cabbage may be my favorite. And now for some of our corned beef. Now normally I would put a little bit of, say, Coleman's hot mustard on here, but I want to taste it straight. I want to just eat this as it is. So let's see. Again, tender without being mushy. Flavorful, it has that inherent moisture and juiciness that comes with the point cut. That's why I like the point cut. If you want a leaner cut of corned beef, obviously go with the flat, but I will take the point cut any day. Let's have a little with some cabbage. So there you have it, my favorite way to make an entire corned beef, cabbage, potato, and vegetable meal. Simple in the slow cooker with that extra little bit of effort for the cabbage, doing it in a separate pan, give it some color, and at the end of the day, after just a little bit of effort, you have a fantastic meal.